Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? All right, you made it. There we go. Good job. Good job. Hey, thank you so much for being here, especially those of you that showed up today in the snow and ice. I know it's been a crazy week, but glad you are here. We know we got a bunch of people watching online right now, and they are in their homes, in their PJs, maybe a fire going, drinking some coffee again, maybe eating some pastries. And we miss you. We know you'll be back next week, but thank you for leaving a little space because our parking lot's a little crazy out there, right? You just saw Robin up on the screen. Robin has her normal work here. She's our executive director here at The Journey. And she was spending overtime this week trying to get our parking lot cleared as much as we can and could. So if you see her, tell her thank you. It's about the best we could do so far. Let me say also thank you to a group of volunteers who showed up yesterday. About 10 to 12 guys showed up. If you see guys kind of walking like this, like don't touch me, they were probably here yesterday because we spent about 2-3 hours clearing as many parking spots as we could. I think we added about another 30. So thank you to everybody who made today happen here for us, and really glad that you guys are here with us in this space today. A couple of weeks ago, Joel was up here and he asked a really thought-provoking question. He said, if you were to die tonight, what would your last words be? I had never thought about that before, right? And maybe that really challenged some of us to ask that question. If I were to die tonight, what would my last words be? Well, I have actually taken that question he asked, and I want to change it up a little bit. I want us to think about this question today. If I were to die tonight, how would I be remembered? Would people think about me and think about, hey, that was a person that was always trying to achieve something else, that there was this career they were going after. It's all about the accomplishments that they had in their life. Is that how I would be remembered? Or would they remember something else? Would they remember, hey, he was there for me in my darkest moments. She was there for me when I needed incredible support. Like if you ask yourself that question, if you were to die tonight, how would you be remembered? How would you be remembered? And would you be encouraged by what people would say? Would you be happy about what people would say? Or in some ways, would it scare you if you heard people answering that question about you? See, if you think about that question, it's actually a question of values, right? Because the things that we value in life is the person that we are. It's the things that we chase after in life. And so whatever we value is what we're going to be remembered for when we leave this earth. Really, it's a part of our DNA, right? It's who we are. And so here at The Journey, we are in this series called DNA, and we are talking about who we are. We're talking about our values as a church, what we value here, because outside of this place, people are going to say, hey, that's the kind of church that The Journey is. They're going to know us by our values and by our DNA. And so we've been talking about our DNA as we've started this brand new year. And maybe you've been here over the course of this series, maybe 2 weeks ago when we were last here. It's a long time ago. You don't quite remember what this series is about. So let me give you a little bit of a recap of where we are. The very first week, we started with our why. Right? We said this is why we exist as a church. We are a movement of people on mission together to help more and more people know and follow Jesus here in Northern Virginia. That is our why. Again, that's why we exist. That is the vision of this church. But we've said, hey, these values feed into that why. They help us live out that why. And so the very first value we shared was for the one. We said that there's people in our life who are far from God, who don't know Jesus, but are close to us. And we want to see them come to know and follow Jesus, right? That's why we want to live out that vision. We want them to know Jesus and follow Jesus. And so this church and who we are and why we exist, it's for the one. We don't make that up. Jesus said, go and make disciples. He said, be my witnesses in all the earth. So there is this command that is there for us to reach the ones in our life. Again, 2 weeks ago, Joel talked about better together. He said, we're not lone rangers. We're on mission together, and we're unified in that mission. We're unified in living out that vision, moving in the same direction. We are better together. And today, I'm going to share with you value number 3. Value number 3 is this: roll up your sleeves. What does that mean? Well, let me give you the definition that we have for this particular value. For us, roll up your sleeves means we move beyond good intentions to actively engage in the work that needs to be done in the church and in our neighborhoods. We're called not just to be spectators, but to be the hands and feet of Jesus in our daily lives. Here's what I'm guessing most of you are hearing. We need more volunteers on Sunday, right? That's kind of where our mind goes. Roll up your sleeves. I see that. It's all about volunteers on Sunday. You're partly correct. Okay, there's a connection between this value and what takes place here on a Sunday morning. But if that's the only place that your mind goes, you're really missing the heart of this value. So let me kind of share with you why this value is important to us and why we want to live it out here in this church. Again, it goes back to that vision. Our desire is to have more and more people know and follow Jesus. And that vision doesn't come true if we've just got good intentions towards that vision, right? It sounds nice, it feels good, and maybe someday I'll be a part of that. We don't live that out if it's just good intentions. We don't live that out if we're on the sideline just being cheerleaders, like, go team, you guys can do this, but I'm going to sit back and watch and see what happens. This vision doesn't happen if we're not fully engaged in it. And so for more and more people to know Jesus and to follow Jesus, it means, like, we roll up our sleeves and we engage in the messiness of people's lives. Look at the community around us. It's fractured, isn't it? I mean, politics have divided families and friendships. Recently, we've had events that have taken place in the public square where very quickly sides are chosen, right? And there's hate and anger that's there, and you're told you need to choose a side right now for what has taken place. And that's outside of here. Think about our own relationships and kind of where we are. Marriages are crumbling. There's mental health struggles that abound in so many people's lives. There's job uncertainties. Relationships are broken. I mean, we can continue on and on with that list. That's the world that we live in. And so who's going to engage actively in the lives of hurting people? Who's going to serve those in need? Who will step up to serve our messy world? And so for us, when we talk about rolling up our sleeves, you have to understand it is really more than just filling some volunteer slots on a Sunday morning. And I would even go beyond that and say it's a lot more than just the church. When we talk about rolling up our sleeves, it is the way that we live our lives because we are fully engaged with who Jesus is. If we're a follower of Christ and we're trying to live out Jesus' mission in the messiness of the world that we are a part of. I think this idea of serving others and rolling up our sleeves really is a teaching of Jesus, but even a command of Jesus. In Matthew chapter 20, there's this event that takes place where Jesus has two of his disciples, James and John. And by the way, their helicopter mom actually jumps into this conversation with Jesus. And so they come to Jesus and they're like, hey, Jesus, here's the deal. We know you're going to establish this kingdom. We want to be a part of it. And we think, maybe you should give us some pretty important roles within this kingdom. What do you think about this? Really an honest question that these guys and mom are asking Jesus here. But in their minds, they think Jesus is establishing this kingdom. And in this kingdom, there's going to be sort of this cabinet. And in this cabinet, the most important people to Jesus are going to be in these specific roles. And then their job is going to be to lead, right? There's a problem here. They're stuck in this worldly mindset. That they think Jesus existing and being present and talking about this kingdom is all about power over other people. And I think for them, they think, hey, if we've got power over people, then we can influence them. Then we can make a difference in their life. But here's what Jesus says to the request. Again, Matthew chapter 20, verse 27, you know that the rulers in this world lord it over their people, and officials flaunt their authority over those under them. But among you, it'll be different. Whoever wants to be a leader among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first among you must become your slave. Now, what does Jesus do? He actually acknowledges what they say here, right? He acknowledges what they're asking. And maybe for some of us, we're not a whole lot different. Maybe this is the way we think, that if I have power over people, then I can make a difference in their life. If I have power over people, I can influence their lives. But what does Jesus do here? Doesn't he flip things upside down? He says true influence doesn't come from a title. It doesn't come from a position. It doesn't come from power over people. See what he says here? He says true influence comes through humility. It comes from us serving others first, that we make ourselves less than others. And we're willing to do whatever it takes to serve those around us. But then I think this is where that learning comes from. And again, I feel like in some ways this command from Jesus at the end of verse 27, I think it's some of the most important words Jesus says. For even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve others and to give his life as a ransom for many. Now, Jesus is actually foreshadowing what's going to take place in his life in the future. He's foreshadowing that he's actually going to give up his life. Like he's going to give the ultimate service to all humanity. He's willing to die on a cross for humanity. That this is what service really looks for. I'm here not to be served as some king. I'm here to serve other people. But when I read those words, I believe there's something that we are called to live out in our own lives if we say we follow Jesus. That we are called not to be served, but to serve. And then again, we roll up our sleeves because of the example of Jesus. But what does this look like, right? We can say this, but what does this look like in our lives practically? Well, I want to fast forward from this event here in Matthew, and I want to move us to the book of Acts. Because in Acts chapter 9, there's this passage in there. It's kind of short, and maybe a lot of times we just kind of pass over it, but it's about this lady whose name is Dorcas. And Dorcas, she knew how to roll up her sleeves. Acts chapter 9, starting with verse 36. There was a believer in Joppa named Tabitha, which in Greek is Dorcas. She was always doing kind things for others and helping the poor. About this time, she became ill and died. Her body was washed for burial and laid in an upstairs room. But the believers had heard that Peter was nearby at Lydda, so they sent 2 men to beg him, please come as soon as possible. So Peter returned to them, and as soon as he arrived, they took him to the upstairs room. We actually don't know a whole lot about Dorcas. We do know she's not a pastor. She's not a miracle worker. She's not a high-ranking official. She doesn't carry some big title. But when we look at these words right here, there's a sentence that really stands out to me. It says this: she was always doing kind things for others and helping the poor. Isn't that a pretty powerful statement about Dorcas? She's living out what it means to fully follow Jesus. And so she spends her life serving the needs of others. But there's a sad part to the story, right? She gets sick, she dies. They go through the burial rites for her. But there's an interesting piece to this, because not only do they go through the burial rites, but what else do you see they do? They put her in an upper room. They actually don't bury her. Why are they doing that? Well, they actually send 2 dudes to go find Peter, who they know is nearby. Hey, Peter, come back and help us out here. Now, I believe they know Peter's story. They know that Peter's one of Jesus' disciples. They've probably heard stories or maybe even seen these events in Peter's life where he's healed other people, where these miracles have taken place. And I think they believe, hey, Peter, because of God's Spirit in him, is going to be able to bring Dorcas back to life. If you were to die tonight, how would you be remembered? I think we have a pretty good idea of what people would have said about Dorcas. They don't want her to be gone. Look at the rest of verse 39 there. It says the room was filled with widows who were weeping and showing him the coats and other clothes Dorcas had made for them. I don't know how many times I've read this passage this week. And even right now today, as I've read it a few more times, every single time, like these chills go up and down my body. Because Dorcas isn't on a church staff. She's not a political activist. She's not leading a small group. She doesn't have 1 million followers on some incredible podcast that she puts out there. This is a lady who rolled up her sleeves to support the needs in her community, specifically the needs of these widows. They might be saying, well, what's the big deal there? Well, widows in that day really became second-class citizens. And in some ways, they were sort of outcasts. There was no social status for them. There was no financial security for them. Now, if you had a son, his job was to take care of you, but sometimes that was kind of hard for the family to take care of you in that instance. There's no GoFundMe campaigns that people could say, hey, we want to raise $200,000 for these widows. That wasn't in existence then. And so these widows were trying to do everything they could to survive. And many of them had to become slaves just to survive day to day. And some of them even had to go into prostitution just to eat. Here's Dorcas, who knows their plight. And what does she do? She uses her skills as a seamstress to spend her time to make these coats and these clothes for the widows in that community. Like, she turns these skills that she has into this ministry to serve others. And so when she dies, that community is devastated. There's deep hurt and pain that they're experiencing because this person who helped them in their moment of need, who cared for them when so many people didn't care for them, she was there to do something to help them in those tough times. And there's tangible proof, right, of this influence that she had on their lives. These widows gather around Peter and they're like, hey, you see this jacket? Dorcas made that for me. You see these clothes I'm wearing? I can't afford any clothes, and yet she's made these clothes for me to wear. If you were to die tonight, how would you be remembered? Well, I think as we look at the story of Dorcas, we know exactly how she would be remembered, how she cared for these widows, and the influence that she had on them. But her influence actually goes beyond that. In verses 40 and 41, Peter comes, he goes upstairs, he kneels beside her, he prays over her, he tells her to sit up. She does. She's alive again. He takes her downstairs, shows them to everybody. And then we see how her life and her story and this miracle influenced so many other lives. Go down to Acts chapter 9, verse 42. It says, the news spread through the whole town, and many believed in the Lord. Her story spreads throughout the town. People are talking about Dorcas, who took the time to make these clothes and to make these coats for people in need, these widows specifically, who are outcasts in their society. And then she dies, and there's this miracle that God does and brings her back to life. And because of her story, because of how God uses this, the people in that town get to this place where many of them begin to know and follow Jesus. And I believe it goes all the way back to Dorcas, who rolled up her sleeves to serve those widows. If we think, as I do and as our church does, that serving is such a central part to following Jesus, why do so many of us struggle with it? Well, let me share with you 3 struggles I think that we have, and a lot of it connects to our context here in this area. There's many more than this, but I think these are probably 3 of the biggest ones. And so let me share these 3 with you. Here's the first one. Struggle number 1, we're exhausted, not evil, okay? Many of us don't struggle to serve because we're selfish monsters. It's because we're just tired humans that are running on fumes and air fryer meals, right? Like, that's how we're living our life today. We are just go, 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 go in everything that we do. There's a study in 2025 by Aflac, and it said that 72% of people report moderate to high work stress. The feeling of burnout was as high as 76%. Okay, I'm guessing if I asked this group here, because of where we live in the DMV, hey, where are you on this? I bet our numbers would be much higher than the 72% and 76%. And so when someone comes to you and says, hey, would you consider serving? Here's what we hear. Hey, would you like to add one more thing to your already overscheduled life, right? Like, that's what we hear from people. It's not that we're not interested in opportunities to serve other people. We're just really tired. And so as we go through our day, and at the end of the day, we're sitting down on the couch, and we're like, finally I get a break, and we get a text message, can you help me? We're not thinking, hey, how can I help this person? How can I bless this person? How can I serve this person? We're thinking to ourselves, can I just get a break, right? I'm tired, I'm exhausted. We're not bad people, we're just tired people. And so often that influences how we serve others or why we struggle to serve others. Here's another struggle I think that many of us have. We've been wired to protect our time at all costs. Harvard Business Review did a study, and they found that the average working adult feels interrupted every 11 minutes. And every time we're interrupted, it takes us another 25 minutes just to refocus on what we were working on before. And so what have we been taught? What have we learned to do? We've learned to set boundaries for our time. Now, boundaries aren't a bad thing, okay? I'm not saying they're a bad thing. But if we take it too far, we begin to train ourselves that anytime there's an interruption to my time, that becomes my enemy. And so I think the tension is we think if I serve other people, I'm going to lose control of my time. If I say yes, and I'm going to fall behind with everything else that's already on my schedule. If I help, then I'm going to have nothing left for my family, or more importantly, I'm not going to have anything left for me. But look at the life of Jesus, right? If we say we follow Jesus, we're trying to live in the example of Jesus and to be more like Jesus. But if you look at Jesus, every single time somebody came to him and said, hey, I need help, Jesus didn't say, really busy, sorry. Hey, my calendar's pretty full. I can't help you out. Hey, you know what? I need some me time, so I'm not going to be able to do anything for you at this moment. That's not what Jesus says, is it? If you go back and you look, almost every single time he asks this question, he says, what can I do for you? And so if we say that we follow Jesus and these opportunities come for us to serve other people, instead of being stuck in our calendar or seeing these interruptions as the enemy, maybe we see them as opportunities to ask that question, what can I do for you? Which, by the way, doesn't mean we say yes every single time, okay? Like, boundaries are healthy and boundaries are good, but if we've been wired to protect our time at any cost, we can oftentimes miss those opportunities to serve others. And so I think that's a reason that many of us struggle with serving. And then the last one, I think maybe one of the biggest reasons, we've been burned before. I'm not sure there's anything worse when you go to someone and you say, hey, what can I do for you? And that person in need says, here's what I need. Here's how you can help me out. Here's how you can support me. And so you do that, right? You jump in. You watch their kids. You help them financially. You take them food. You sit and listen to their struggles over and over and over again. And then what do you get in the end? Many times we get silence. There's no thank you. No moment of appreciation. No time where someone comes up to us and says, hey, you helped change my life. You transformed my life, how you supported me. Many times we're hit with silence. Or I would say even worse is we get taken advantage of. That the person we're trying to help, the people we're trying to help actually abuse that relationship, and they ask for more than we're capable of, or they ask for more than we can do. And when that happens, we begin to ask ourselves, why am I helping this person? Why am I doing this for them? This is making my life so much harder. I don't want to help anyone else because of my experience here, being burned by this person, being burned by this group of people. I call this the servant wound. It's where you give of yourself, your time, your money, your resources, and you get burned by others. And you know what that wound does? It doesn't stay the size that it was. It gets bigger and bigger and bigger until we get to the place where we have no desire to help anybody else. And those opportunities come to serve, and we're just like, nope, I'm good. I'm going to stay out of this because I've been burned in the past. It's hard to serve when we've been burned, when we're trying to help those in need. The reality is serving other people can get messy. It's not every time that we serve that everything that happens within this time that we spend with someone is ideal. And many times it does cost us. It'll cost us time. It'll cost us money. It'll cost us resources that we have. But I think that's why Jesus gives us a really clear picture of what it looks like to serve and engage actively in the messiness of this world. And I think one of the best examples is the Last Supper he has with his disciples. John chapter 13, verse 1 says, before the Passover celebration, Jesus knew that his hour had come to leave this world and return to his Father. He had loved his disciples during his ministry on earth, and now he loved them to the very end. Here's Jesus, who has this incredible love for these disciples, and they've been with him maybe 3+ years. They spent time together. They've hung out probably almost every single day. But he knows his time on earth is almost up. That in a few short hours, he's going to be crucified on that cross. So what does he do? Look at verse 4. So he got up from the table, took off his robe, wrapped a towel around his waist, and poured water into a basin. Then he began to wash the disciples' feet, drying them with the towel he had around them. Now, it's important to understand in that time, there's really no pavement. There's no concrete. You didn't have Jordans to wear or Crocs to have on your feet. You were walking barefoot, or maybe you had some sandals as basically just a piece of rubber underneath the bottom of your feet. And so you're walking in dry dirt all the time. And if we take a little step further, it wasn't just dry dirt. There was a lot of other things because things weren't really sanitary in those days. And so when you would go to someone's homes, one of the first things that would happen is the lowest servant there would actually take the time to wash your feet. Like, there was kind of this idea like, hey, we're going to clean your feet as you come in here. And so the servant would do that. Here is Jesus, who's with his disciples the night that he's getting ready to be betrayed. And what does he do? He washes their feet. He takes on the role of the lowest servant, rolls up his sleeves, or actually here in this case, he rolls up a towel, right? And he washes his disciples' feet. They're nasty, gross, dirty, ugly, gnarly feet. And some of us hear that, and we think about that part in the story, we're like, well, I mean, yeah, I could kind of see that. They're buddies, right? They're friends. They've been with each other for a long time. This is good. I mean, my friends have some nasty feet, but if you said, hey, would you wash their feet? I think I could wash their feet. Remember this. One of those 12 disciples is a guy named Judas. And what does Jesus do? Does Jesus skip Judas? No, he washes Judas's feet. And who in a few short moments is going to betray him? And he knows it. What does Jesus do? He steps into the grittiness, the physical grittiness of these nasty feet that he is washing there, taking on the role of the servant to do that, but also the spiritual grittiness of working with this guy and washing the feet of this guy who he knows is getting ready to betray him. I think this is one of those moments where Jesus really exemplifies, hey, I came to serve and not to be served. I know this world is messy. I know things don't always go the way that we planned or what we had hoped for. I know sometimes we get hurt. But you know what? If you're a follower of mine, you're here not to be served, but to serve. Live your life this way. And so if we follow Jesus, rolling up our sleeves is about embodying who Jesus was and what Jesus did and who Jesus calls us to be. Again, if we go back to that value, right, we're moving beyond good intentions to actively engage in the church and in the community and the messiness of this world to be the hands and feet of Jesus. And when we do that, here's the other thing. We're giving people a glimpse of God's kingdom here on this earth. Like, that's what Dorcas has done, right? She has served in such a way that she is showing this widow, hey, this is what it looks like to live in God's kingdom. And so when she's gone, they're like, we want her back because she is amazing and she is living out what it looks like to serve other people. She is serving us. Her time's not yet, please God. Let her serve us a little bit more because we're seeing what it looks like to fully follow Jesus. I don't think Dorcas realizes what this, maybe to her small thing she was doing, how it influenced those widows, and then how it was going to influence the town that she lived in. I don't think we always realize when we take the time to serve other people, the influence it has, not just on the people we are serving, but the people around us. And so for us here at the Journey, serving isn't optional. We are called to serve other people. Now, what does that look like practically? Let me share with you 3 quick next steps here. The first one is, let's say, serve your circles. All of us are in circles, okay? Whether it's the neighborhood that you live in, it's where you work, it's your school's PTOs, it's the college you go to, it's your pickleball club, it's the Dungeons and Dragons crew that you hang out with every week, right? We all have circles. And in those circles, we got people that we know really well. We've got people we don't know at all. We got people that we really like and love to be around. And we got people that might be our enemies. Serving our circles means we serve people no matter who they are, where they're from. They vote differently than us, think differently than us, believe differently than us. It doesn't make any difference whether we're friends or enemies. Like, we are called to serve people, right? And sometimes the best place to serve people is the people that are within the circles that we have in our life. This week, say yes to serving someone in your circles. That when that opportunity comes, you're looking for it, right? Or you're listening for it, and you hear that or you see that, you jump in to serve, whether you know them or not. That's serving your circles. This past week is a great example of this. Snow and ice all over the place. And if you were like us and our family, we spent a ton of time getting our cars out and all that kind of stuff, and then having to do that like 3 or 4 more times this week because, they didn't plow anything. But that's beside the point. Well, one day, our son Jake and I, we were walking up our street because there's nowhere to walk your dogs in any grass or anywhere safe. So we're walking up our street, and we passed a couple of homes. And one of the homes we passed, the lady was out. She was shoveling out, icing out her driveway. And she had done about half of it. And we walked a little bit further, and Jake looked at me. He's like, "Dad, I think we're supposed to go back and help her." It's like, "I think you're right, buddy." Took the dogs home. We grabbed our shovels. We went out, and we finished her driveway for her. Come to find out, she came out and talked to us. She's like, "Hey, my husband died a couple years ago." We had no clue she was a widow. Talked to us a little bit, and she said, "Thank you." We're like, "Hey, we just want to help you out." And we did that. As we're walking home, we're already tired, freezing. We know there's another widow in our neighborhood, and we looked at each other like, "I think we're supposed to do this one too." So we started doing that one. She's throwing $20 bills, $50 bills at us like crazy. We're like, "We're not doing this for money. We're doing this because we want to help," right? But I told Jake a little bit later, I was like, "Dude, you could have made like $2,000 this week. You messed up, buddy. You could have made a ton of money because people just giving out cash." But anyway, like, those are the instances we're looking for or we're listening for, that we can go and serve people in our circles. Maya Angelou said this: "I've learned that people will forget what you said, people forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel." Right? People are going to remember how you made them feel. So do anything you can to serve in your circles. Live out what it looks like to follow Jesus. Second thing I would say is, here we go. Ready? Serve at the Journey. Okay? I know you love this one. Now, hear me out in the heart of this. This isn't about filling slots in this incredible volunteer matrix that we have, because we do have one of those. It's not about that at all. It's not about filling slots. It's about forming people. It's not about a task to be done. It's about teaching us what it looks like when we allow ourselves the opportunities to serve others and how God may use that. I don't know if you know this or not. Every single week, people like you and me are walking into this place. And we may say hi to them. You know how the church world works, right? "Hey, how you doing?" Big smile on their face. "I'm great. Everything's wonderful." "Okay, good." I'll go to the next person, ask how they're doing. And yet internally, there's turmoil. There's hurt and there's pain. They've lost a loved one. They've lost a job. Maybe there's a diagnosis that just came back that week. This kind of smacked them across the face. Their marriage has hit a roadblock. Their kids are having troubles at school. Someone's got suicidal thoughts as they walk through our doors here. And so we may smile and say, "Everything's wonderful. Everything's great." And that might be true, but I will tell you from my experience that many of us are bringing something with us. And so at that moment where you serve and journey kids, you don't know what that kid's going through, what that kid's thinking. And yet you being in that space with them, interacting with them, may influence them in some incredible way, maybe not now, but maybe in the future that you could never imagine. Or working with Journey Teens, or, in our parking lot today is be patient as you leave. Don't get angry at people. We got some wonderful people out there, right? But those people that are out there helping in our parking, we don't know what their job is because they might have to push you out. Who knows? But you don't know what that might mean to someone in their life, or the single mom who's struggling, or the young couple and what they're going through. And so every interaction we have in this place is an opportunity to serve someone else. And in that moment, whether it's giving coffee or being in kids or being in teens or out in the parking lot, whatever it may be, in the band, whatever it may be, being an usher, it might be the one thing that begins to turn someone to want to know more about Jesus. And like Dorcas, we may not see the influence of it in our own lives. It may come years down the road, but serving here gives us those opportunities to interact and to serve other people, to be formed in this place. Well, how can you experience the power of serving others? Let me give you a couple of options here. There's a QR code in front of you, and if you go to that QR code, one of the top buttons on that link tree says roll up your sleeve. Some of you are like, hey, I think I've seen this image before. Yep, we did a one-off last spring where it was all about serving here at the Journey, and we called it roll up your sleeves, and so this is the graphic from it. But it is one of our values. And so if you would love to jump in and to serve, to be formed in some way, we invite you to sign up and to hear more about how you can serve here at the Journey. The other thing is, Joel talked about this, I think at the end of last year. It's called No Need Among Us. And again, there's a link tree form there you can click on. And it's like Dorcas, you're taking the gifts and abilities that you have and saying, hey, I can help with taxes, or I can, shovel someone's yard or lawn or whatever you need shoveled these days. And, I can help with kids or babysit, whatever it may be. So just take the time to fill that out. That's part of our care team here, and we would love to see more and more people serve in these capacities here at the Journey. Serving in our circles, serving in this community, at this church. And then lastly, here's a simple question to ask. What can I do for you? Whether it's here, whether it's in our circles, what can I do for you? You never know how God may use you in someone's life to make a difference, not just for that moment, but potentially for eternity. Because we look at Dorcas and her life and how she lived her life made a difference in those widows' lives. And then I believe made a difference in the lives of so many there in her town. I think when she finally came to rest at the end of her life, the second time, I can only imagine what people were saying about her then. And so for us today, if you were to die tonight, how would you be remembered? Would you be remembered to be someone like Dorcas? Would you be remembered as someone who helped people and encouraged people and served people and gave your time, your money, your resources, your efforts to help those in need? Because I would tell you that God can use you and me to transform people's lives. And then I think about, what about us as a church, that if we live this out, not just one of us, but all of us, I wonder what God could do with that. Because I believe God could do something very powerful in this church, in this community, and in this world.